I silently listened as my family mocked me at brunch saying, "Let him feel special." They never suspected I was about to contact my lawyer, cancel their credit cards, and sell the cabin, exposing the truth of their greed in the most final way possible. I'm Orion, 32, male, and after years of being my family's personal bank and emotional punching bag, I finally decided to close the accounts. It wasn't a snap decision, but rather a slow, quiet cementing of a truth that had been staring me in the face for 2 decades. The final piece of that foundation clicked into place over brunch, amidst the clinking of glasses and the smell of hollandaise sauce. The Sunday brunch was my mother's idea, as it always was. A mandatory family gathering at a trendy, overpriced restaurant where the quality of the food was secondary to the performance of being a happy, successful family. I sat at a small, round table, the white linen crisp against my forearms. Across from me was my mother, Marcella, her expression a carefully constructed mask of maternal warmth that never quite reached her eyes. To her right was her sister, my Aunt Renata, who functioned as my mother's echo. And beside me, stirring his third sugar into a tiny espresso cup, was my younger brother, Dashiell. I was paying for all of it, of course, I always was. "You've been so quiet, Orion," my mother said, dabbing her lips with a napkin. "Is work keeping you busy?" It was the standard opening, a seemingly innocent question that was really a test. If I said yes, the follow-up would be about how I never made time for the family. If I said no, it would be a comment on my lack of ambition compared to the sons of her friends. I chose a neutral path. "It's been steady," I replied, taking a sip of my black coffee. Dashiell, without looking up from his phone, scoffed. "Steady? He's an architect, Mom. He draws buildings. It's not like he's curing diseases." I didn't say anything. I had learned long ago that defending myself was a futile exercise. It only provided them with more ammunition. My silence was my shield. My mother reached across the table and patted my hand, her touch as light and meaningless as a fly landing on a windowpane. Then she pulled her hand back, looked at Renata, and smirked. It was a small, fleeting expression, but it was dripping with the casual cruelty I had come to know so well. "You're lucky we even include you," Marcella said, her voice just loud enough for the table to hear. "Pity goes a long way." The words hung in the air, sharp and ugly. I felt a familiar coldness spread through my chest, but this time it was different. It wasn't the usual sting of hurt, it was the clean, cold clarity of a final realization. Pity, that's what she called her version of love. My Aunt Renata, ever the loyal second, sipped her mimosa, the orange pulp clinging to the side of her glass. She smiled, a mirror of my mother's expression. "Let him feel special, Marcella. It's the least we can do." Let him feel special. As if my presence at this table, a table I was funding, was a gift they were bestowing upon me, as if my entire existence within their orbit was an act of charity. Dashiell snickered into his phone. The three of them were a closed circuit of casual disdain, and I was the outside wire they used to ground their own insecurities. I just smiled. It was a hollow, empty thing, but it was all I had. I finished my coffee, the bitter taste a welcome distraction. I said nothing. I didn't argue. I didn't plead my case. I just sat there, nodded, and let their words wash over me one last time. In their minds, they had won. They had put me back in my place, but as I sat in that silence, I wasn't feeling hurt. I was feeling free. This dynamic wasn't new. It was the water I had been swimming in my entire life. I remembered my college graduation. I was the first in our family to get a master's degree in architecture from a prestigious university. My mother had insisted on a celebratory dinner, but the entire evening was spent discussing Dashiell's chances of getting a soccer scholarship. My degree, my years of hard work, were treated as a footnote. "It's wonderful, dear," Marcella had said, waving a dismissive hand. "But Dashiell's coach thinks he could go pro. Imagine that." My accomplishment was just an appetizer for my brother's potential. Then there was the cabin. Our grandfather, my mother's father, was a quiet man who saw things others missed. He saw how Marcella and Renata treated me, how they coddled Dashiell and used me. In his will, he left the family cabin, a beautiful rustic home nestled by a lake, to me and me alone. The will was explicit, for Orion, who understands that a foundation must be cared for, not just stood upon. The rest of the family was furious, but they couldn't contest it. Their resentment, however, became a permanent fixture in our relationship. They used the cabin every summer, of course. They called it the family cabin, and I paid for the taxes, the insurance, the new roof last year, and the boat motor that Dashiell broke. They treated my ownership as a technicality, an inconvenience. It was their playground, and I was merely the groundskeeper. And the money, oh, the mows. Nay, the constant, unending stream of it. Last year, Dashiell came to me with a once-in-a-lifetime business opportunity. He needed a significant loan. He was vague on the details, but my mother insisted. "You have to support your brother, Orion. Family helps family." So I gave him the money, a transfer from my savings to his. 2 weeks later, his social media was filled with pictures of him and his friends on a yacht in the Mediterranean. When I confronted him, he just laughed. "Oh, that was part of the networking, bro. You gotta spend money to make money." My mother defended him, of course. "You're too uptight, Orion, you should be happy for him." I was happy to help. For years, I told myself that. I was the responsible one, the stable one, it was my role. But sitting there at brunch listening to them talk about pity, I finally understood. I wasn't helping, I was enabling. I wasn't the pillar of the family, I was the doormat, and a doormat can always be replaced. So I smiled, said nothing, and when the bill came, I placed my credit card on the silver tray without a word. It was the last time I would ever pay for their brunch. It was the last time I would pay for anything. The drive home from the restaurant was silent. I didn't turn on the radio. The hum of the engine was the only sound, a steady, monotonous drone that matched the feeling in my head. The city blurred past my windows, people laughing on sidewalks, sunlight glinting off glass buildings, but I saw none of it. I was replaying the scene at the table, not with anger or sadness anymore, but with the detached focus of an architect reviewing a flawed blueprint. The smirk on my mother's face, the glint in my aunt's eyes, the dismissive chuckle from my brother. These weren't cracks in the foundation itself was rotten. It was built on a bed of my quiet compliance and their loud entitlement. Her words, "Pity goes a long way," echoed in the car. It was the most honest thing she had said to me in years. They didn't respect me, they didn't love me. They pitied me, and they used that pity as a justification for their exploitation. I pulled into the parking garage of my apartment building. I lived in a part of the city they rarely visited, one I had chosen for its quiet and its distance from them. My apartment was a reflection of me, minimalist, orderly, and self-sufficient. Every piece of furniture, every book on the shelf, every plate in the cupboard was something I had earned, something I had paid for with my own hard work. It was my sanctuary, the only place where I wasn't defined by my relationship to them. I walked into my living room and stood by the large window looking out over the cityscape. For years, I had carried a sense of guilt, a feeling that I wasn't doing enough, that I should be a better son, a better brother. I had let them define my worth. But in that moment, the guilt was gone, replaced by a profound, almost startling calm. The decision wasn't born of rage. Rage is a hot, messy emotion, and this feeling was cold and precise. It was the simple, logical conclusion to a lifetime of data. I had tried, I had shown up for every birthday, every holiday, every manufactured family crisis. I had given my time, my energy, and my money without question. I had hoped that one day they would see me, the real me, not just the function I served in their lives. That day was never going to come. They weren't going to change, so I had to. I sat down at my desk, the polished wood cool beneath my hands. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over my lawyer's contact information for a moment. This was the point of no return. This was the demolition phase. With a steady hand, I pressed the call button. "Arthur," I said when he answered, "it's Orion. I hope I'm not disturbing your Sunday." Orion, his voice was warm and professional. "Never, what can I do for you?" Arthur had handled the legal work when I inherited the cabin from my grandfather. He knew the situation. He had seen the will. "I want to sell the lake cabin," I said. There was no hesitation in my voice. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. "All right," he said slowly. "Are you sure about that? I know how much that place meant to your grandfather." "My grandfather wanted me to have it because he knew I would take care of it," I said. "He also knew my family. He wouldn't want me to hold on to something that brings me nothing but resentment and obligation. It's time, list it as soon as you can." "Okay, Orion, I'll draw up the listing agreement and send it over tomorrow morning," he said, his tone shifting from concerned to efficient. "I'll handle everything." "Thank you, Arthur," I hung up. The first cut had been made, it was clean and surgical. Next, I opened my laptop and navigated to my online banking portal. I clicked on the tab for the high-limit credit line, the one I had opened years ago as a family emergency fund. My name was at the T. Op primary account holder. Beneath it were the authorized users, Marcella, Renata, and Dashiell. Their spending was a map of their lives. Marcella, weekly charges at high-end salons, boutiques I'd never heard of, and the ridiculously expensive organic grocery store. Renata, spa days, online shopping sprees, and charges from a winery subscription service. Dashiell, restaurant tabs that cost more than my weekly groceries, streaming services, ride-sharing apps, and a recurring monthly charge for a lifestyle coaching service. For years, I had looked at this list and felt a knot in my stomach. It wasn't an emergency fund, it was their slush fund. It was my money, my credit, my financial stability underwriting their whims. I clicked on my mother's name, a small menu popped up. View transactions, set spending limit, remove user. My finger hovered over the last option. A flicker of doubt, the last ghost of a lifetime of conditioning, whispered in my mind. "This is your mother." Then I remembered her smirk. Pity goes a long way. I clicked remove user. A confirmation box appeared. "Are you sure you want to permanently remove Marcella from this account?" I typed yes into the confirmation field and clicked confirm. Her name vanished from the list of authorized users. I did the same for Renata, click confirm, gone. Then I moved to Dashiell. His list of recent transactions was the longest. He had used the card just yesterday to buy concert tickets. I thought of him laughing with his friends, living a life I was bankrolling while he mocked my profession at brunch. Click, confirm, gone. Now only my name remained on the account. Orion, primary account holder. I closed the laptop. The room was quiet. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the floor. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry. I felt a deep, profound sense of order being restored. I had spent my life drawing plans for buildings, creating structures that were strong, balanced, and functional. My own life's structure had been dangerously out of balance for far too long. Tonight, I had redrawn the plans. The 2 weeks that followed were some of the most peaceful I had experienced in years. A strange and wonderful silence descended upon my life. My phone, usually buzzing with passive-aggressive texts or urgent calls from my family, was quiet. I let their calls go to voicemail and responded to their occasional texts, "Haven't heard from you," or "Is everything okay?" with brief, non-committal replies. "Just busy with a new project, talk soon." The lack of constant, low-grade anxiety was startling. I had grown so accustomed to the background noise of their demands that its absence felt like a physical weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I found myself more focused at work. My designs were sharper, my mind clearer. I was immersed in the plans for a new community library, a building meant to be a quiet sanctuary for everyone, a place of peace and knowledge. The irony was not lost on me. I was building for others the very thing I was now desperately trying to build for myself. On Monday morning, just as he'd promised, my lawyer Arthur emailed the listing agreement for the cabin. I printed it, the paper warm from the machine, and read through the terms. It was all standard, but seeing it in black and white made it irrevocably real. Exclusive right to sell agreement. Property address 124 North Lake Road. Seller Orion. I paused on the line for my signature. My hand holding the pen trembled slightly. An image flashed in my mind, a much younger version of myself, maybe 7 or 8, sitting on the cabin's wooden dock with my grandfather. He was teaching me how to skip stones, his hand guiding mine. "See, Orion," he'd said, his voice a low, gentle rumble. "It's not about strength, it's about the right angle, the right spin. It's about letting go at just the right moment." I thought I might feel a wave of grief, of loss. I was selling a piece of my history, the last physical connection to the one family member who had truly seen me. But instead of sadness, I felt his words resonate with my present actions. It's about letting go at just the right moment. This was the moment. He would have understood. With a steady hand, I signed my name, the ink a dark, definitive line on the page. I scanned the document and emailed it back to Arthur. It was done. A few days later, a wave of nostalgia, or perhaps just old habit, washed over me. I was tidying up my apartment and came across a small box of old photographs. I pulled one out. It was from a family vacation at the cabin maybe 10 years ago. We were all smiling for the camera, Marcella, Renata, a teenage Dashiell, and me. For a second, I felt a pang of something akin to loss. I remembered the warmth of the sun that day, the smell of pine needles. Was I being too harsh? Was I destroying the only family I had over a few hurtful words? Then I looked closer at T. He photo. My smile was strained, a tight, forced thing. I was standing slightly apart from the others, an unconscious separation even then, and I remembered what happened just after that photo was taken. Dashiell had accidentally pushed me off the dock, fully clothed, and my mother and aunt had laughed until they cried, telling me I needed to learn to take a joke. The warmth of the sun in my memory was replaced by the cold shock of the lake water and the sting of their laughter. I put the photo back in the box and pushed it to the back of the closet. My resolve was no longer just a decision, it was a shield. The peace I was feeling was real, and I wouldn't trade it for a hollow, picture-perfect memory. The realtor Arthur hired was incredibly efficient. She visited the cabin, had professional photos taken, and prepared the online listing. She called me on Friday afternoon. "The listing will go live this evening, Orion," she said, her voice bright with optimism. "It's a beautiful property. Given the current market, I expect we'll have significant interest over the weekend. I'll keep you updated." "Thank you," I said, my voice even. "I appreciate it." That night, I didn't check the real estate websites. I didn't need to. I had set the dominoes in motion. Now all I had to do was wait for the first one to fall. I ordered in from a Thai restaurant I loved, opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving, and sat not at my dining table but on a stool by my large living room window. I watched the city lights flicker to life, a sprawling galaxy of separate, independent lives. For the first time, I felt like I was truly one of them, a single point of light in the vastness, responsible only for my own brightness. The storm was coming, I knew it. But for now, the quiet was everything. The storm didn't arrive with a thunderclap. It began with a single, innocuous text message on a Tuesday morning. I was at my firm reviewing blueprints for the library project when my phone buzzed. It was from my mother. "Marcella, my card was declined at the salon. Is something wrong with the account? Please fix it." There was no hello, no how are you, just a statement and a command. "Please fix it," as if I were the family IT department. For a moment, I was tempted to reply with something sharp, but I remembered my new strategy, silence. I read the message, put my phone face down on the desk, and turned my attention back to the blueprints. The problem was not with the account was working perfectly, exactly as I had designed it to. An hour later, the family group chat, a digital space I had muted but not yet left, started to stir. It was my Aunt Renata. Renata, Marcella, is something wrong with the card? My order from the vineyard was just cancelled, said the payment failed. Dashiell, my game subscription didn't renew, WTH. I watched the messages appear on my phone's lock screen one after another. It was like watching a slow-motion chain reaction. They were probing the edges of their gilded cage and finding, for the first time, that the bars were real. Marcella, Orion isn't answering his phone. Dashiell, can you get a hold of him? This is ridiculous. My phone immediately started ringing. Dashiell flashed on the screen. I silenced it and slid it into my drawer. I could feel the vibrations against the wood as he called again and then a third time. The calls were followed by a string of texts in the group chat. Dashiell, he's not picking up. What is his deal? Renata, this is so irresponsible of him. What if one of us had a real emergency? A real emergency, I thought, was not a cancelled wine delivery. A real emergency was having to live your life within your own means, a concept that was apparently so foreign to them that its first appearance was causing system-wide panic. I felt a strange sense of detachment, like a scientist observing an experiment. The initial hypothesis, that their comfort was entirely dependent on my resources, was proving correct. The real tremor, the one that shook their world to its core, came that evening. It arrived in the form of a screenshot posted to the group chat. It wasn't posted by my mother, aunt, or brother, but by a distant cousin, someone who lived near the lake. The screenshot was of the online real estate listing. There it was, in crisp, professional detail, a beautiful, sun-drenched photo of the cabin, my cabin, under the bold heading, "For sale, charming lakeside retreat." The cousin had added a simple, devastating caption. Cousin Carol, Marcella, I saw this on Zillow and thought it had to be a mistake. Is everything all right? The silence in the chat was instantaneous and deafening. It lasted for a full 7 minutes. I could picture them in their respective homes, staring at their phones in stunned disbelief. The cancelled cards were an inconvenience and annoyance. This was an earthquake. This was an attack on the family's history, on their summers, on their status. Cabin was a symbol of their legacy, a legacy they enjoyed but had never bothered to maintain. Then the explosion. Marcella, that's impossible. This is a joke, a mistake. Renata, Orion would never do this without telling us. He wouldn't dare. Dashiell, I'm calling HIM right now. My phone began to buzz and ring with a frantic, desperate energy. First Dashiell, then Marcella, then Renata, then Dashiell again. It was a digital siege. I watched the screen light up with their names, one after another, a frantic chorus of entitlement and rage. I let it ring. The group chat descended into chaos. Accusations flew, panic set in. Marcella, he's selling our family's home, my father's home. Renata, after everything we've done for him. Dashiell, he is going to regret this. I swear he is going to regret this. I read their words, their predictable outrage and manufactured victimhood. Our home, she called it. The home I paid taxes on, the home I insured, the home I owned. Everything we've done for him, my aunt claimed. What had they done? They had tolerated my existence in exchange for my financial support. They had invited me to brunch and insulted me. They had offered me their pity. I put my phone on silent and placed it in another room. The tremors were over. The eruption was about to begin. And for the first time, I knew I was ready for it. I was on solid ground, and they were the ones whose world was crumbling. The screaming started at 8:02 p.m. I had just finished dinner and was settling down with a book when my phone, which I'd retrieved from the other room, began to vibrate violently against the coffee table. It was Dashiell. After dozens of missed calls from him, my mother, and my aunt, I knew this was the one I had to answer. This was the confrontation I had been preparing for. I let it ring 3 times, took a deep, steadying breath, and swiped to accept the call. I didn't even have a chance to say hello. What did you do? The voice that blasted through the speaker was distorted with rage, a raw, primal scream of entitlement. What did you do, Orion? I held the phone slightly away from my ear and waited. I had promised myself one thing: I would not raise my voice. I would not get drawn into the emotional chaos. My calm would be my weapon. Hello, Dashiell, I said, my voice even and quiet. Don't hello, Dashillme, he shrieked. The cabin, you're selling the cabin. Mom is having a complete breakdown. She's crying. Are you happy now? Are you happy, you selfish jerk? I pictured my mother's tears. I had seen them many times before. They were tears of frustration and manipulation, not genuine sorrow. They appeared whenever her will was thwarted. I felt nothing. The cabin is mine to sell, I stated simply. It was a fact, not an argument. It's not yours, he yelled, his voice cracking. It's the family's cabin. It's where we grew up. It's Grandpa's legacy. You have no right. Grandpa left it to me, Dashiell, I replied, still calm. And for the last decade, I have paid every bill associated with it while the family treated it like a free hotel. A hotel, I might add, where the staff gets insulted. There was a brief pause. I had thrown him off script. He was prepared for a fight, not for quiet logic. What is that supposed to mean? He stammered, his anger momentarily replaced by confusion. I'm talking about brunch, Dashiell, I said. I'm talking about 2 weeks ago when Mom said she only includes me out of pity and Aunt Renata said I should be allowed to feel special, and you just sat there and laughed. Oh, come on, he sputtered, finding his footing again. That was just a joke. Mom was just teasing. You're really going to destroy the family over a joke. It wasn't a joke, I said, and for the first time a sliver of my own buried anger surfaced, cold and sharp. It was the truth. It's how you all see me. I'm not family. I'm a utility, a resource, someone you tolerate because I pay for things. Well, the resource has been depleted. The bank is closed. The bank, he asked, incredulous. You think this is about money? This is about loyalty. This is about family. Is it? I challenged. Then tell me, Dashiell, what happened to the $50,000 I gave you for your business venture last year? Silence. The angry bluster on the other end of the line died instantly. That's different, he finally managed to say, his voice significantly lower. No, I said firmly, it's not different, it's the same. You feel entitled to my money just like you feel entitled to my cabin and my time and my respect, all while giving none in return. The credit cards are canceled, Dashiell. The cabin is being sold. This isn't a negotiation, this is a notification. I could hear him breathing heavily. The rage was gone, replaced by a dawning, sputtering panic. This wasn't just about losing a vacation spot anymore. This was about the end of a lifestyle. You can't do th. He whispered. It wasn't a demand anymore, it was a plea. You can't. What is Mom going to do? What am I going to do? The question hung in the air, so pathetic and so revealing that it almost made me laugh. What am I going to do? For his entire life, the answer had been simple. Orion will take care of it. You're going to learn to live on your own income, I said, my voice devoid of sympathy. You're going to pay your own bills. You're going to learn that actions have consequences. This is a consequence, Dashiell. It's not a punishment. It's the natural result of your own behavior. You're destroying this family, he said, his voice thick with a child's petulance. No, I replied, the finality of my own words settling deep in my bones. You're wrong. I'm not destroying the family. I'm just leaving it. Before he could respond, before he could muster another scream or another plea, I ended the call. I blocked his number, then I blocked my mother S, then my Aunt S. The eruption was over. The silence that filled my apartment was absolute. It wasn't empty, it was full of peace. I had stood in the path of the lava flow of their rage and had not been burned. I had spoken my truth not in a scream, but in a quiet, steady voice they couldn't ignore. The foundation I was building for my new life was holding strong. The days following the eruption were filled with the digital equivalent of aftershocks. My decision to block their numbers meant I was no longer a direct target, but the fallout radiated outwards, reaching me through other channels. My email inbox became the new frontline. Marcella was the first to attack. Her emails were a masterclass in emotional manipulation, shifting tone from one paragraph to the next. She started with wounded motherhood. I cannot comprehend the coldness in your heart. To do this to your own mother who gave you life is a betrayal I will never understand. Then she pivoted to threats. Your grandfather would be ashamed of you. You are tarnishing his memory and our family name. She finished with a desperate, guilt-laced plea. I don't know what we did to make you hate us so much, Orion, but please just stop this. Call me. We can fix this. I read the email, feeling a distant, clinical detachment. We couldn't fix this because, from her perspective, nothing was broken until the money stopped. The problem she wanted to fix was her canceled credit card, not the decades of disrespect. I moved the email to the trash folder without replying. Renata's emails were less sophisticated, just distilled versions of my mother's outrage. You are a cruel, ungrateful boy. After all the times we welcomed you, made you feel a part of things, this is how you repay us. Her version of history was so warped it was almost impressive. The pity brunch in her mind had become a generous act of inclusion. I deleted her emails without even finishing them. The pressure campaign extended beyond email. A few flying monkeys, family friends loyal to my mother, sent me concerned texts. Your mom is so worried about you. Are you okay? I replied with a polite but firm, thank you for your concern, but this is a private family matter that I am handling. I felt isolated, a small island against a tide of their narrative. They were painting me as a villain, a cold-hearted monster who had turned his back on his loving family for no reason. A part of me, the old, conditioned part, started to second-guess myself. Was I the bad guy? Was I being too extreme? Then on Friday, an email arrived from a sender I didn't expect. Cousin Carol. The same cousin who had dropped the bombshell of the cabin listing into the group chat. I braced myself for another wave of guilt, but her message was different. Subject thinking of you. Orion. I can only imagine what you're going through right now. I'm sure Marcella and Renata are making things difficult. I just wanted to say, I get it. I've been at those family dinners. I've seen how they talk to you when they think no one is listening. I saw what they were like after Grandpa's will was read. You've always been kind and responsible, and they've always taken it for granted. Selling the cabin must have been a hard decision, but I hope it brings you some peace. Grandpa always said you were the strong one. Don't let them make you doubt yourself. All the best. Terrell. I read the email 3 times. Tears welled in my eyes, not tears of sadness or anger, but of pure, unadulterated relief. It was a lifeline. Someone else had seen it. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the villain. My reality was validated in a way I hadn't realized I so desperately needed. Carol wasn't a central figure in my life, just a peripheral relative I saw at holidays, but her few kind words meant more to me than all of my mother's dramatic pronouncements of love. Her email was a turning point. It solidified my resolve and extinguished the last embers of doubt. I was not destroying a family, I was escaping a toxic system. That weekend, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a day trip just for myself. I drove out to the coast, a place I loved but rarely visited because my family found it boring. I walked along the beach, letting the cold spray of the ocean hit my face. The sound of the waves, a constant, powerful roar, washed away the lingering echoes of their angry words. I watched the seagulls circle overhead, effortlessly riding the wind. They were free. For the first time, I felt a similar sense of freedom. The weight I had been carrying for so long, the weight of their expectations, their insults, their financial dependence, was gone. I was lighter. I breathed in the salty air, and it felt like the first clean breath I had taken in 32 years. I had mourned the loss of the family I wished I had, and I was finally ready to accept the reality of the one I was leaving behind. I pulled out my phone, but not to check for angry emails. I opened my contacts and deleted the numbers for Marcella, Renata, and Dashiell. Not just blocked, deleted. It was a small, symbolic act, but it felt monumental. It was time to clear the way for a new reality. 3 weeks later, I received a call from my lawyer, Arthur. Good news, Orion, he said, his voice crisp and professional. We have an all-cash offer for the cabin, 10% over the asking price. No contingencies. They want to close in 2 weeks. I felt a surge of relief so profound it almost buckled my knees. That's fantastic, Arthur, thank you. The buyers are a young family who fell in love with the place, he continued. They reminded me of you and your grandfather, actually. They want to create their own memories there. His words painted a picture in my mind. Another family, a new generation, sitting on that old wooden dock, skipping stones, laughing. The thought didn't bring a pang of loss. It brought a sense of peace. The cabin wasn't being erased. It was being given a new life, a chance to be a place of joy again, free from the toxic residue of my family's entitlement. Accept the offer, I said without hesitation. The closing was a simple, sterile affair conducted through email and secure document portals. I signed the final papers from the comfort of my own apartment. A few days later, a notification popped up on my phone from my banking app. A large sum of money, the proceeds from the sale, had been deposited into my account. It felt less like a windfall and more like a reclamation. It was the financial embodiment of my freedom. The silence from my former family was absolute. I heard nothing more. Carol told me in a later email that Marcella and Renata had put on a grand performance of being heartbroken victims, while Dashiell had apparently been forced to get a second job and sell his car. Their world had shrunk to the size of their own wallets, and I was no longer there to inflate it. I felt no satisfaction in their struggle, only a quiet confirmation that my decision had been the right one. Their panic was a problem of their own making. With the sale finalized and the ties completely severed, I began to think about the future, my future designed by me for me. For years, my vacation time had been spent at the cabin, performing unpaid maintenance and enduring their company. My savings had been a safety net for them, not for my own dreams. Sitting at my desk one evening, I opened my laptop and started browse. Not real estate, not investment portfolios, but travel blogs. I found a website detailing a month-long architectural tour of Japan, visiting ancient temples in Kyoto, modern marvels in Tokyo, and serene gardens tucked away from the hustle of the city. It was a trip I had dreamed of since college, but had always dismissed as an impossible extravagance. But it wasn't impossible anymore. I looked at the number in my bank account, the money from the cabin, the money I was no longer funneling into their lives. With a smile, I clicked a link for a language course and then opened another tab for flight information. I wasn't just planning a vacation, I was investing in myself. I was building a new life on a new foundation, one of self-respect, independence, and peace. The pain of the last few months had been real, a necessary demolition of a structure that was unsafe and uninhabitable. But now the site was cleared, the air was fresh. And for the first time, looking out at the endless possibilities of my own life, I felt truly, completely at home. The pity they offered was a cage they wanted me to live in. But I had learned that freedom isn't something that's given to you. It's something you have to be willing to build for yourself. One brick, one boundary, one brave decision at a time.